Today, we're going to dive into the world of emotional intelligence and specifically how improving our emotional intelligence as business owners, leaders, and managers can have profound effects on our performance, on our enjoyment in work, on our ability to empathize and to have better relationships with the people around us, to attract and serve our clients better, and also just feel happier in the work that we are doing, be more productive and more successful as a result. It seems like a lot to ask, and before I did this interview, I would have thought the same thing. But after speaking with Robin Hills, who is a renowned expert in this field, I am totally convinced that he is on to something here, something he has been working on for many decades, but something that I think that we should all be more attuned to and tuned into as business owners, and that is the world of emotional intelligence. If you want to contact Robin and find out more about his work, once you've listened to the episode, check out our show notes for his links. But his LinkedIn profile is Robin Hills, spelled exactly like it sounds. And his website is ei4change.com. That's the letter E, I, the number 4, change.com. So it's Robin Hills, ei4change.com. Enjoy this episode. It is an absolute game changer. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success. Welcome to Systemize Your Success. As always, I'm Dr. Steve Day, and today I'm joined by another doctor, Dr. Robin Hills, and he's a business psychologist and the director of EI for Change, and it's a company that specializes in emotional intelligence for change. And he is a world-renowned speaker and has empowered over 400,000 people and is recognized with multiple awards, including International Impact Company Company of the Year, by .com magazine, and Best Transformative Emotional Intelligence Coach by the CIO Times. So I'm in awe of all the other awards, and I'm absolutely fascinated or interested or excited, I should say, about this conversation, as it's something that when I saw you pop up as a potential guest, I was really eager to get you on, because I truly believe that emotional intelligence and everything that comes with it and well-being and health is such an important topic for business owners, especially as well as everyone else in the world. But I think business owners are a unique case for many reasons, and I'm sure we're going to get into all of that today. So, Robin, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me on your show, Steve. I hardly recognize myself through your introduction, but I have to swallow hard and think, yeah, that is me.
Yeah, you've done all those amazing things, so you'd be proud of it. I think it is hard sometimes when people. I've done it as well when you're on the show and someone's rattling stuff off. You're like, oh God. Anyway, let's get into things. Let's kick off. So, emotional intelligence. This is something that if you know what it is, then great, but maybe people don't. So let's just kick off with go back to basics. What is emotional intelligence for you, and why should the audience listening to this, why should people care about it?
Oh, Steve, it's a brilliant question. The difficulty is I don't really know myself what emotional intelligence is, because it is such a complex construct and emotions are so varied and they underpin everything that we do as human beings, or indeed even as animals in the world. So for your listeners, my definition is very, very simple. It's being smart with your feelings. It's the way in which you combine your thinking with your feelings in order to make good, authentic decisions and build up quality relationships with a view to taking action.
Okay, and so how does that help me as a business owner?
Well, first of all, it's recognizing that emotions underpin everything that we do. A lot of business owners try to avoid working with emotions. They find it incredibly uncomfortable. and they look at emotions very, very simply as angry or happy, and they will rattle between the two and not even recognizing that there are variations on a theme around both of those emotions. And it depends upon what academic paper you read, but we have between 3,000 and 27,000 different emotions. I think the larger number is more accurate than the smaller number. So the thing is, we really do not understand emotions at the depth of the level that we should do, but we're starting to recognize them as being fundamentally important in terms of decision making, in terms of learning, in terms of our experience as human beings.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess one thing that springs to mind is a conversation I've literally just had I just did run a mastermind session with my coaching clients on a Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning in the UK, and we actually were talking about the right clients, about dealing with people or and also dealing with their emotions. And I think that one of the challenges that we identified as business owners is that the way we are, the way we perceive the world, or the way we perceive any situation is so complex, like you've just said, but that is actually often very different from the way other people perceive exactly the same situation because they have all of their emotions which are influencing their thought at that moment in time. So going if I was having if you had you in that conversation then I think it would have been fascinating to get your take on it. So we were talking specifically about how to try to work with the right clients, as in people that when you work with them, you get joy from the work you do with them. You don't feel stressed, and you sort of get each other. Like, where does emotional intelligence like fit into trying to create a happier work environment by being able to have better relationships with your clients or the people you serve?
Sure, sure. If we look at the emotional intelligence model, and I'm not going to go into great detail around it, but just select out the relevant parts. If we look at the outer world, that's the outer world of things, situations, and events. It involves people, and we need to have an awareness of people. And the conversation that you've had with your coaching clients around their clients is understanding their emotions, their emotional state, and how that drives their thinking and their feelings. And really, in a sales situation, what we are doing there is we are helping them to make appropriate decisions. So we're influencing, we're persuading. The action and behavior that we're taking from an emotional intelligence perspective is to utilize our social skills in order to get the client to where they need to be with what it is that we're selling to them. And really, the whole word that encompasses all of that is empathy. So, how do you empathize with people? Because by empathizing, you're getting into their shoes, you're seeing things through their eyes, you're feeling their feelings, and you're understanding. And it's through that understanding you can build up these better relationships.
There's a book that springs to mind, and I can't remember the exact title, but it's something like "I'm Surrounded by Idiots." I can't remember.
Yes, yes, yes. It is. It's sort and there are variations on the theme. I can't remember the author, but you can find it in every airport lounge, every airport shop. Good book, good book.
And I think because it came from the conversation earlier as well, and I think that the empathy part is, and going back to my medical training, like empathy is a huge part of how we connect with people by exactly trying to see it from their perspective, trying to sort of as best we can get into their shoes. But I think that often our own emotions get in the way of that because we react to the way they are acting in an emotional way, and then that then can feed back into this vicious loop, and you end up being in or can end up in a situation where you're escalating rather than the opposite of escalating, which I can't remember. Uh, push like making it better. And so like if we find ourselves in those situations, like understanding that this exists is one thing, but like what can we do about actually improving the way we are reacting to help us empathize, like when actually maybe our natural reaction is sometimes quite the opposite.
It is, and I think that's part of how we interact with other human beings. We try to get everything to focus on us, our world, because our world is right, and what we see the world as and how we perceive everything is right for us. It's right, but at the same time, it's wrong. And what we've got to do is to remember, particularly when we're working with clients, and everybody is a client, that it's more about them. It's about fulfilling their needs rather than fulfilling my needs. It's having a recognition of what my needs are. It's having an understanding of what my values are and what principles that I work towards, and making sure that they're not compromised. But in so doing, I'm here to serve other people. So, what is it that they want from me? And if we go back to Surrounded by Idiots, let's take it away from the book and look at the model that underpins that. It's looking at four types of behavior that we exhibit as human beings, and these are preferential behaviors. They're behaviors that we prefer. Now, you can either have a focus on outcomes and results, or you can have a focus on quality and processes, or you can have a focus on teamwork and harmony, or a focus on innovation and creativity. Now, none of those focuses are any better than any of the other. It's just that we have a preference for one, perhaps even combined with two or even three. And that's where we will go to when we are faced with a business conversation. So if we can recognize what our client's focus is, we can deliver against that. So if we recognize that our client is focused on getting things done very quickly and getting outcomes, go there. Don't talk about the team and harmony and collaboration because they're not interested. Now, if a person's got a little bit more time and they're a bit calmer and they're talking about what happens with other people, then deliver against that outcome. This is how it's going to benefit the team. This is going to be how it benefits you within the team. So you're then focusing your message based around what they want rather than based around what you want. Now,
Yeah.
when I'm actually working with people along these lines, I do say to them right at the end of a workshop which is involving these principles, what are my preferences? And the answers that come back to me are exactly what I'm looking for. We can't tell, Robin. And the answer is what I'm wanting to hear because what I'm doing is adapting my preferences around everybody. So it's focusing on all of those outcomes and making sure that each one of them is delivered in a way that suits anybody and everybody, irrespective as to what their preferences are.
That sounds amazing, but incredibly challenging.
It
Just
is. I've spent a lifetime trying
yeah,
to master it, and it
exactly.
goes on. It goes on.
And I think because it one thing that really like speaks to me when you're talking about this is, I've done loads of training and reading and course on marketing. And the challenge with marketing often is we're marketing to an audience we don't know who is actually going to get that message. Okay, maybe we've got an email list and maybe we segment it a bit and we know a little bit about those people, but we don't really know much about them. And so like trying to and I did a launch recently, and it wasn't received by some people in the way I thought it would be, and some people loved it, and I was like, I got it in some ways got it totally wrong, and other ways got it totally right, and it just plays into exactly what you're just talking about is like the way that I presented that was very probably not, I don't think it was trying to be me focused. I was trying to focus on my clients, but I was probably doing it through a window that I hadn't really taken into account. Okay, what is the breadth of um, people out there and how are they going to receive this? Well, I probably just focused too narrowly on maybe one particular persona or whatever. I think that is, yeah, fascinating, but incredibly for me sitting here, obviously this is what you do, but I think being better at that would be fantastic.
It is, and I think the key there is to remember you're not going to please everybody all the time, and if you please more people than you displease, you're doing it right, and that's the easiest way to look at it. And any kind of feedback is good feedback, even if you don't like that feedback. You don't have to accept it, of course, but listen to it, and can you learn something through it? So just to repeat it for you, Steve, just to repeat it for me, and also to repeat it for your listeners, there are four focuses. What are you trying to do? What are the outcomes? How are you going to do it? What's the process that you're going to take? What impact is it going to have on the people involved? So that's looking at the team, the teamwork, and who else you involve in the process. And how are you going to do it in a creative, innovative way with energy and enthusiasm? And if you can answer all of those questions and infuse that through your communications, chances are you will hit everybody's hot button in some way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say that some people aren't going to come back and dislike it. That's their prerogative, but just go with it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, it's a different, I mean, I'd say I haven't done lots of marketing stuff over the years, but it's actually, I love this focus. It's just, it's sort of, it's almost away from the I can't think of the word. My brain's failing me today with word recognition, but there you go. Maybe my emotions are skewed for some reason. Probably lack of food or sleep or one of the two. What was I going to say then? So I love this take on it. This is taking it from a different perspective than I've ever heard. In that we're not talking about goals necessarily here and about outcomes such as we're actually talking about the process and about actually presenting that in a way that resonates with people hugely. And I really love it. Um, One thing I know from doing a little bit of reading up on you before you came on the show was that something you talk about is mindfulness. And I've read stuff about mindfulness and but often with regards to being mindful about the day, being mindful about where I am in the moment for a like mental health perspective, like being actually present and mindful of the time I'm spending with whoever I'm spending with, all that sort of stuff. But how does that come into actually work? And for example, like getting clarity, or how does it improve with productivity and work? Because I know that's something you've mentioned in your literature.
Yeah, most definitely. Mindfulness is a very, very powerful um, tool. Yeah, let's use that word. It's the wrong word, but I think it moves the conversation forward. Most people think of mindfulness as going into some sort of trance and sitting around with joss sticks and going, And mindfulness is not. It is being very much in the present moment and focusing and concentrating on what you're doing in the present moment. So at this present moment, I am talking to Dr. Steve Day through his podcast. That is my focus. So anything else that's going on in my life is irrelevant. It happened in the past, it will happen in the future. At this particular moment in time, I am being interviewed by Dr. Steve Day. That's the most important thing. And the moment when I started talking about this is gone. So all I can do is be in the here and now. And it's taking away anything that is distracting and reducing that and minimizing it. But it's also recognizing that because I am focused on one particular thing, I will be missing lots of other things going on in the environment. And it's having the humility to be able to say, hey, I've missed that. What is it that you've seen that I haven't? Now, isn't that interesting? And a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, a lot of senior consultants in the National Health Service are so focused on being right all the time that when somebody points out something to them that they miss, they get quite assertive around the fact that they're the expert, they're the all-perceiving, all uh, perceiving person who wouldn't miss anything important, and they haven't got the ability to actually step back and say, do you know, you've seen something really valuable that I can actually work with now. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. That's hard for a lot of people, but that's emotional intelligence, and that's the application of mindfulness.
Fantastic. This really resonates with me because a few years ago, I realized that I have almost 100% uh, that I have ADHD. And it was at the time a huge sledgehammer for me as a for learning about this about myself in my early 40s. And and then after the fact, it's become the most powerful tool for me to recognize the challenges that I face, that everybody faces, but in some cases that people with ADD and ADHD, they're just amplified. And this is one of them, is the ability to we can focus on everything at once, in theory, or a lot of things at once in theory, but not anything very well, or hyper focus and at the expense of everything else that goes on. And what I've managed to do, thankfully, is recognize that as one of my biggest um, strengths and superpowers, but also one of my greatest weaknesses. And actually being able to then say, okay, I understand that when I'm in this zone, and it can last for days or it can last for weeks even, then literally the world is switched off. And so I built systems and teams around me, or my people around me, to help me do exactly what you just said, is to alert me to when I'm missing the world. And I've had to really change, like you said, I had the humility to actually ask, say, what's going on around me? Like what am I not doing? Like what haven't I done on my job list today that I should have done? And all these things. So very interesting to hear you talk about it because it's just so relevant to where I'm at in my life at the moment.
Well, I think unfortunately, that's been thrown into sharp focus by giving you a label, Steve.
Yeah.
And you're well aware of that.
I gave it myself. No one else gave
Well, no,
it.
as a clinician, we've got to work with the dangers of
Yeah.
that. But I think the important point here is that it's having the realization that you've got the ability to see things your own way. It is right for you, but everybody else will be seeing and perceiving things slightly differently. And what we've got to do is to understand what the gaps are because they're not seeing the world the right way. And what is it that we're missing? And having that ability to ask these questions and to actually focus when we need to focus and then focus on the things that we haven't been focusing on. And where do we get that information from? Other people.
Yeah, totally. And like, yeah, with anything, doesn't matter what label you've got, and I've got a few, that it's just a spectrum. And that we are all sat, all of us, on every single spectrum there is. And it's just understanding that none of those are normal. It's just where you are at, and that's your normal. And that's the joy of, I think, recognizing these things is suddenly having, like you say about the label as well, and not to digress too far, but I think the for me, having a label is not a good thing, but having a acceptance of, okay, this is actually normal for me.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was the thing. It's like the people, everyone else in the world is thinking, looking at me like I'm strange, but actually it's okay because this is what I'm like. So they either get on, accept it or move away.
Uh,
Um,
Look, can I give you my label?
please.
I am quite moderately, if not severely, deaf. So, I wear it with pride. It's a badge of honor because it's helped me over the years to learn to empathize and to learn to pick up emotional cues. But I do wear hearing aids. This is the reason why I've got my headphones on because I've manipulated them according to my hearing loss. But it gives me a superpower. You've talked about a superpower. Yeah, I'd like to hear better. I'd like to hear how normal, in inverted commas, people hear, but I can't. Therefore, I've got to compensate for it. And I compensate for it in terms of it now being a superpower. It helps me with empathy. I'm very proud to say to people, I'm deaf. And I'm also very, very honored to be able to say to people, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said then. Can you repeat it, please? Because a lot of people cannot use that phrase. It's the other person's problem for not speaking clearly, not speaking loudly enough. It's me that you're communicating with. So communicate in the way in which I want to be communicated with. No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, totally. Fascinating. Um, so where do we go from here? I think that it'd be interesting to hit your takes on something that's I've been talking about a lot recently. I think everybody in the world has, which is artificial intelligence and how this is relevant to the world of emotional intelligence and where you see either conflicts or synergies between the two, or anything else that you find interesting in this area.
Oh, no, it's a fascinating topic. I think we've got to look at emotional intelligence as complementing artificial intelligence. I've used the word earlier. Artificial intelligence is a tool. It is nothing more than a tool, but we're frightened by it because it seems to be running away with itself and we're trying to catch up. No, we're not trying to catch up. We've just got to remember what it is that makes us human. What is the essence of what we do that robots, artificial intelligence will never be able to do? Robots, artificial intelligence does not have a human brain. Therefore, it cannot react to changes in its environment in an emotional capacity. So, what we've got to remember is that emotional intelligence gives us the ability to innovate, to be creative, to be artistic, to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to be a leader. And all of these things are going to be vital for the future. Therefore, hone up on your artificial intelligence skills, but more importantly, hone up on your emotional intelligence skills because that's the future.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I've spoken a lot recently with on my podcast and especially with clients as well about how really doubling down on artificial intelligence as a tool, as you mentioned before, can add huge amounts to productivity, efficiency, and that is only going to become or continue exponentially for the foreseeable future. And there's so much stuff coming out now, content being produced. I mean, I use artificial intelligence to help me to do my marketing for my podcast, for example.
Yes, I do as well.
What I don't do is get artificial intelligence to record my podcast for me. Although I did do once just as a test, I got it to write and then actually speak in my own voice and do the whole podcast for me. But I think that that key element of human connection, which is obviously driven hugely by emotional intelligence for all the reasons you just said, like that's where I see that if as a coach or a business owner or a service provider or just someone who wants to actually serve other people anyway, like the more we focus on that now in our businesses, and because the actual delivery of whatever the thing is that we're producing, that in hopefully in the future will actually be able to be done hugely by automation and robots and artificial intelligence and all the rest of it. But what we can't do is exactly what you just said. We can't replicate, and hopefully we don't want to replicate the connection side of it, the actual. the having the ability to talk about something because of the way it made you feel.
Yeah.
And that's like as business owners, especially like we can be very lonely, very depressed, very excited, very happy people for all various reasons. And I don't see a day in which your AI bot, ChatGPT, is going to turn around and say, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm so really, really appreciate you doing that. That was really nice of you." You know?
Well, let's spin the conversation back to where we started. You were talking about coaching and you were talking about your clients talking about their clients.
Yeah.
Those processes will never be done by robots. So salesmen, saleswomen, salespeople work with clients' emotions. And that is the ability that salespeople have got that they need to recognize and they need to work with. Yeah, we can go on to Amazon and we can buy a book that we want and we have no human interaction that way. But we've made a decision to go in and buy that book from somewhere before we actually go in and purchase it. So there will be part of the sales process that will be automated, but actually answering somebody's questions, answering their objections, providing the emotional drive, the motivation to buy will only come from salespeople. And then if we look at it at your level, Steve, the level that you were talking about, you're coaching people. You're building up on the nuances of tone, body language, and emotions when you're actually working with your clients in order to ask them the questions that they need to be asked in order to move them forward. That ability is completely devoid from emotion, from artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Let's hope it stays that way for a long time.
Oh, it will do. It will do. It will do. In my lifetime, in your lifetime, this time next century, in 1,000 years' time, we don't understand the way the human brain works. Is it a quantum computer? I think people are even starting to look at it that way. Um, we're never going to be able to replicate it. Never. It's had billions and billions of years to get to where it is at the moment. We're not going to replicate it in 20 years' time. It's just impossible. So, because of that, I think we're safe for certainly the foreseeable future, certainly for the near future, and certainly for the long future.
Yeah, totally. And I think the big thing for me, and I think that obviously plays hugely into this subject of emotional intelligence, as you described in the beginning, is the effect of hormones, the effect of the environment on us, and previous experiences, and how that affects us. And I read a book by Joe Dispenza not so long ago, the habit of breaking the habit of being yourself, or something similar to that. And in there, he talks a lot about the fact that actually the way we react to every situation in the world is a pre-programmed mechanism that's been built up over our entire lifetime, of every memory and every experience you've had, plus the emotional state we're in at that present moment in time when it happens. And like that means that like when we're dealing with humans, like the complexity of everything that goes into the way someone feels in the moment, like it would be it's inconceivable at the moment anyway for me to see how that we could create, or a machine would be created that could cope with that, to analyze and understand in the same way that we intuitively do, because we've lived through that ourselves, and we're, as you say, billions and millions of years of evolution. And that's why I think the importance of human interaction is only going to grow, and leading to the work you do, being able to do that in a meaningful way, an intelligent way, having understanding and some control or power over our emotional intelligence is only going to become more and more important.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think one of the key things that we've got that the robots will never have, we've got a childhood. We've enjoyed a childhood. We've been naughty boys. We've been spanked because of that. We've learnt through that process. We've got memories. We've got experiences. that are unique to us. They create Robin Hills, they create Steve Day, and we're never, ever, ever going to be replicated.
No, even though, as I said before, it did a pretty good job at doing my podcast for me one time. That's slightly different. So brilliant. As we draw this towards a close, I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you do, the work you do, and about how you can help people like myself, for example, as a business owner. I'm a micro business owner. I work independently. I work remotely. I don't meet people very often in a work sense, but I interact with people all the time on Zoom. And a lot of my clients are moving into a similar sort of work environment. And I'd love to know, like, how would you help someone like me? How would I, what benefit would I get from coming to work with you? And what does that look like? Not just for me, but for anyone else listening.
Sure. Usually I work with people completely remotely, like you've just alluded to in terms of the work that you do. Um, my doctorate is an honorary doctorate. It's in advanced study psychology. 10 years ago, I saw the opportunity to provide emotional intelligence training online. And so I concentrated and worked on that, and I built up a number of courses based on emotional intelligence that are available on all the major educational platforms. So, the way in which I help people is to learn more about emotional intelligence and how to apply it in business through all of the things that we've been talking about: people interactions, how to get on with anyone, communication skills, leadership, collaboration, teamwork. Yeah, that's just to name but a few. So that's how I work. And then people will contact me and say, I'm very, very interested. Will you coach me personally? And the answer is most definitely yes, I will do. And I use a lot of personality and behavioral assessments in my work. If it's appropriate, then we would use one of those and then build up our conversations based around that. But the focus is not on me. The focus is on you. What is it that you want, and how can I help you?
And what kind of things would why would people approach you? What's a typical sort of client that comes to you? Obviously, people go to find solutions when they've got a problem. So what is the problem that is brought to you that you help people solve?
Multivariant problems. Mostly it's around conflict and communication issues. People who move into a new role and they're not feeling as confident as they should be, and they just need a little bit of guidance and TLC, and they just need a little bit of a push in the right direction. So those are the sort of things that people come to me and talk to me about. And then I've got a number of clients who like to use the behavioral assessments in terms of recruitment. Who are we bringing into our company? Are they a right fit for us? Well, everybody's a right fit if you find the way to fit them in. But it's a case of helping the organization to find the people that they need in order to do the job that they are requiring to be done at this present moment in time.
Yeah, and I guess also fit into the existing infrastructure of the team or the existing team, the existing emotional intelligence in the business.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And so do you help people like you mentioned leaders quite a few times in this conversation? So helping people to become better leaders by understanding their their staff in a better way, in a more empathetic way. Is that the kind of things that becoming better emotional intelligence can help one do?
Yes, yes, I've got a wonderful little story here because a lot of my courses are available in big corporate organizations throughout the world, and they're put into one of their programs. And I learned over the last few months that a lot of my courses are in the silver program, the middle tier program in a lot of organizations. The gold tier, they have all the world-renowned experts who are common names in the field of emotional intelligence. It's very, very interesting because these people can deliver, but it's edutainment for them. they're not going to get the depth and the quality and the understanding of emotional intelligence in the business setting that they're going to get from the silver tier, because a lot of those people are well-renowned specialists. I don't want to take anything away from them. They're experts in their field, but they're academics, and none of them have been leaders in the business environment. They've never gone out and carried a briefcase and tried to sell. They've never had to hit monthly targets. They've never missed monthly targets and had to work around that. They've never worked with teams in the way in which business people have worked with teams. That's where the experience that I've got comes into play. So let the gold tier, the senior leaders, the C-suite have their specialists. Oh, I've heard from such and such this. Yeah, okay, right. How are you applying it?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm not too sure on that. So all the silver people become a lot more emotionally intelligent. And quite honestly, there are 10 times more within that level than there are at the gold level.
totally, totally. Fantastic. So I want to draw this to a close, and I thank you very much for your time today. But before you go, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you. Shall I like to ask everybody? And I talk a lot about systems, about apps, about tools that we use in a day-to-day life. And I always like to ask my guests, what tools, browser extensions, apps, or technology do you like to use every day to improve the way you work and live?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually going to answer that in probably a very strange way. I changed my bank a few years ago. Went from one of the traditional high street banks in the United Kingdom, and I use quite a few of the online banks. I use Revolut and I use their app, and they provide me with a service that none of the other banks will provide. So that's one that I use quite a bit. I work in the field of creating online courses, so I've got to mention the programs that I use quite considerably in that area. I use Audacity a lot. It's a great audio tool, very, very steep learning curve. And I think I've tickled about 1/20th of it, but it works for me. And then I've got a plugin that goes into PowerPoint that I use every day called iSpring from iSpring Solutions that allows me to automate the animations, and it provides me with everything I need in terms of creating videos. And then I will edit my videos in Filmora. There are other apps out there that which do the same thing. And what I would say to anybody, find the ones that work for you and become very, very loyal to them. If they don't work for you, go and find something else.
Yeah, totally. And I've used most of those things. I haven't used Silver Spring, if that's what it's called.
iSpring,
I
iSpring.
iSpring.
Like
But
iPhone, but iSpring. I
yeah,
don't know
okay.
where the spring comes from.
But Filmora as a video editing tool is actually we tried a few things, went reverted back to it because it's I think it's got a really good balance between features and tech, but actually quite an easy to use interface. Because
Yeah.
this is a random tangent, but there's an absolutely top of the range, brilliant, totally free app called DaVinci Resolve,
Yes.
which is absolutely top of the game, and it's totally free because they sell hardware, but you can get the software for free and you can run it on any computer. If you want to do professional video editing, go with that. It's amazing. However, it is far, far too advanced for anything unless you're going to do film production, and therefore it's just a burden rather than a help. And then we reverted back to Filmora because it does everything we need and a bit more besides that we haven't tapped into, and it's really being developed into the AI world as well to make things better. But this isn't a pitch for Filmora. I have no connection with them. I get no commission on this, but it's just a great app. Fantastic. Couple of things for you. First of all, title of this podcast is Systemize Your Success. But what does success mean to you?
Success means achieving a level of contentment in whatever it is that you're doing. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a lot of friends. You don't have to have a big house or a flash car. What is it that gives you contentment? What is it that gives you joy? What is it that you turn to when times are tough? That, for me, is success, being able to identify that and being able to tap into that.
Fantastic. And lastly, do you believe you can systemize your success, and why or why not?
Yes, I think I will go with the answer, yes, you can, but you can't do it from the point that you're at the moment and systemize it moving forward. You can have an idea of what you want to do and you can follow that path, but you have to learn to fall flat on your nose, to graze your knee, make mistakes, pick yourself up and move on and try something else. I think if I look back on my life, yes, I can develop the system that worked for me, but I'm a function of where I am now, the age that I am now, and the experience and the environments that I've worked through. So, yes, you can systemize it, but what works for me isn't going to work for you, Steve, and what worked for you, Steve, isn't going to work for me.
Absolutely not. And systems are a continual evolving beast that require optimization in technical terms, and exactly what you just said in lifestyle terms. You live and learn. You fall down, you get back up again, and that's exactly the same process. It's about continually evolving, who you are. So I totally agree. Fantastic. Robin, it's been a pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed this. I knew I would before I even started the call with you, because it's a subject that I have spent many, many, many hours reading about, thinking about, working on, and have many, many more hours to come, I'm sure. So thank you very much for your time today. It's been fascinating.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm going to spend many hours learning my art even more.
I'm
Thank you.
sure you will. Cool. Thanks so much. Take care.